Hello. Gonna go over a bunch of different topics. I know that camera's bouncing, but hey, I'm in my deluxe studio here. Um, and yeah. Okay. Well, this is just gonna be an onslaught of topics here. So, hope you're tuned in a little bit. And I hope you're a bit privy to all these things. Alright. First thing I want to talk about is health. Because you really can't have a group of people, you can't have productivity, you can't have a nation, you can't have anything if you don't have health. You can't really even have life. To live, to be happy, is to be healthy. Happy and healthy, your emotions or body states, right? You know, so when we have these things about GMO and everything and owning life, well, it's like these people are owning your life and my life, and well, all the life they contaminate they start to own. Because you know how the lawsuits go with when GMOs infect other people's crops, or the simple law of integrity. You could say when a person has to kill all their crops because they got infected with GMOs, and if you're an honest person, you don't want to be selling those if you looked into it, you know. So there's that aspect of it, which is like the in your face, everyone knows about GMOs. The softer aspect of it is natural, untinkered with food. Because if you want to be a nut about it, there's a lot of stuff out there which is just recently introduced into mankind's diet, and you know, it's like the body and the microbe and everything else, it has the memory, so eating like what your ancestors did is best. So, you know, if you're talking about on a national level, it's probably why back in the day people used to eat a certain way in certain places. Maybe it made sense, maybe it helped them for those regions and stuff. Alright? Of course, the mysteries of why certain plants were created and placed this and that and the other, well, those are sort of up for intellectual grabs, so to speak. But anyway, there's a lot of wisdom there when you're talking about hybrid foods versus non-hybrid. Just to give you a little refresher on that, it's like, or perhaps to give you a kink in your diet, you know, things like cauliflower and carrots and things like these, they're not that ancient. A lot of foods out there, the vegetables, are more recent, maybe a few hundred years, or even less than that. You know, carrots are Dutch and all that other stuff. And, well, do I need to repeat myself too much? No, you get the idea. So, there really, I think, needs to be more sense of regional and ethnic food for different people, wherever you are. I mean, I don't care if you're a Swedish person or a person in Africa. You'll still benefit by eating what your folk did. So I don't know, you can't expect to have much of a nation or much of a happy life if you don't have health. And I don't think you can have health if you don't have a mind. Because, you know, that's what determines what goes into your mouth most of the time. It's whether you're angry or upset, or maybe you're just, you don't know better. Of course, sometimes it's not available even if you do. But that's what I'm talking about. So you really have to get people in the mindset that why would you eat something or do something if you know you're not going to like it? I mean, it's simple enough, but it's very hard, right? But it has its advantages. And eventually your body becomes more intelligent and stronger than your attitude and your emotions, which has great benefit for society at large, right? You know, the cost of infighting and all these Thanksgiving fights and whatnot, it's it's quite taxing, you know, on a health level, very practically. You know, I haven't seen studies for this, but I'm pretty sure that these things aren't quite healthy. And the savings of getting along is just innumerable, because that's the whole way of life. You're nicer to yourself, you're nicer to the people around you, to your neighbors. You know, it's tougher to work with people when you're on a sugar rush and everything else, right? And you're moody and you're saying a bunch of stuff that doesn't quite make sense just because you feel like it. You know, so you have to target the mind. And what messes with the mind? What controls the mind? Well, you know, there's the things like the Hollywood movies and the Disney and everything else like that. So you really have to focus on that. You know, the frequency of the music, even the type of electricity used. I think we ought to resurrect the spirit of Tesla best we can. Man, that was a very smart Eastern European man. Okay. You know, so it's also in the academia too. Maybe that's what people think of when they think of the mind. You know, but that starts young. If you really want to cultivate a mind, you have to get with the trivium, you have to get with the logic, all these things that are lost. So to have a proper education, you really need to, one, realize you've been lied to and everything else, and two, try to educate yourself, and three, then maybe at that point you can help somebody else out, like your kids. Okay. You know? And the academia goes straight into the control of scientific progress. You know, for example, in the 1930s, there was a conference going on, and Tesla was there with a bunch of these other early electric engineers of the day. And things like free electricity were on the table. And these aren't men who are talking and speculating in armchairs. These are people with patents and credentials. Excuse me, this fan must be a bit moldy. And they're, you know, it's not fanciful talk when you have results and results. And, you know, you get a certain edge when you have a certain knowledge where you can often predict things. You know, and that's why these people with insights, whether they're authors or scientists, often say things about 80, 100 years or more before they happen. Alright? So, you know, if you are into academia and science, and if you're honest, you'd see that most of the progress pretty much stopped like the 1920s or so. And it's because of, in my opinion, and I have looked at the history and things, I encourage you to do the same, it's because of the electrical engineering has been dismantled and stopped. Now, some biographies and documentaries out there are kind of biased, but there are some decent ones on Nikola Tesla, which, if you don't want to do other types of reading, this is a very good movie, because he was a very good man with a heart, and I do believe he was with God. So, you know, you control the academia, then you're stunting progress, and, you know, that's directly affecting the economy of this place. So it seems like we're just talking about the mind, but we're talking about a whole lot more. Because I can't imagine the world it would be if the dreams we had as kids weren't killed, not because of the world's a cruel place, but because it's run inefficiently. And because you're not given the tools you need to develop your mind and your inner potential, you know, this divine intelligence which is in us, to make the different world, alright? And the mind is also affected in other ways, which are a bit kooky, I admit. But if you have eyes, you'll see that there are hexes and lights and things like that. And I just mean the six-sided shapes and things like that. After taking monatomic gold for a few months, I started to see those things, especially at night or when I played my guitar. No, I was not under any other influence. However, these things don't matter so much. All I'm saying is that if there's a way to mess with people and there's incentive to, you better bet someone's doing it. That's my thinking anyway. You know, there is a self-curse, but whatever. You know, Wi-Fi and all this other stuff, that's not so kooky. You can see plants, trees by Wi-Fi towers and stuff dying, and kids have this thing where they do want to develop their potential and grow, and there's a group of kids that were doing experiments with cell phones, and I think it was on the growth of plants, but what they realized is that when they were thinking about it, they all decided to try to turn off their cell phones and leave them in the other room at night. And they were sleeping better, and they were getting better at test scores and things like that. They were able to remember more. Granted, what are they remembering but a bunch of lies? That's not the point. But I'm just saying, if the conditions are provided, the will is kind of natural in life to grow and change things and preserve what's good in one. As simple as that, you know. So you do have to affect the mind, and specifically the mind of the young. You know, and the mind of the young, well, that's not really known so well through psychology, which is based on false premises. You know, you get a lot better snapshot if you look into the astrology of a person, and the learning styles based on that, based on the frequencies at which they operate and how they're affected. You know, but yeah, we could go on about the mind thing for a while. You know, there's an electric grid here, and anyway, you know, with all the computer power and everything and all the information people have, people with Astro and all the rest, I really think people are more predictable than they've ever been before. And that's why these people can do these things and affect marketing trends and everything else. You could go with the weather too, even. Controlling the weather to see how you feel and what do you do when you feel. Maybe you go shopping, maybe influence the market. Or maybe you're influencing the food supply with your weather stuff. You know, and that, a hungry mind versus a not hungry mind, now that's a difference of mentality. You know, that's a difference of priority. You can breed out the ambitious and just get a working class. I was talking to a dear Hungarian, and she was saying how people there are going to just work and not get anything, and the mentality is that, oh, you have to work and you have to save and do all this stuff, which is fine, I guess, but it's not really, because that country and the genius of it would have been tremendous. But for influences of communism and I guess you could say Jewish stockholders, the people who have stockholds and wrecking countries and making things inefficient. You know, the enemy of all people. And that word's a bad word, but I don't care who's doing that stuff. You just look at what's being done and you react appropriately, and that's it. You know, so this is what you have to do. You have to affect the mind in a positive way. Otherwise, you're just selling off your legacy and your line and your resources all in one blow, you know, with every kid. So the home becomes a bit more important, doesn't it? Perhaps finding intelligent ways through astro, through prayer, and all these other things to figure out where to live. Partners and this and that. There has to be stability in the home, right? Things like what all the people do who do things in their work, Gaddafi and Hitler and things. You give people their own land. You let peasants own things. You know, you don't have rent because it makes no sense to have rent. It's just a dirty thing. Wood is wood. It costs so much, or it has so much value. And that's that. There's no reason a house paid 70 years ago should have to be paid to the banks 5, 6, 7, 8 times, if not more. You know, talk about a good deal. You sell something, you take it away, and you sell it, and you take it away, and you sell it, and you take it away. And who are you draining? You're draining the good workforce. You're draining your energy. You're draining the economy until this place lacks infrastructure and everything else, and it comes sort of like a desolate land. And that's why America, though it has the resources, is not nearly as built up as Europe, and is not the seat of the world as I do think it could be if it came together. Just like other nations could be if they came together in other areas. You know, I personally think that America has tremendous resources and self-sufficiency. You know, so I do feel privileged for once in my life to say that I'm an American. Besides, besides everything else that I know quite well, you know, believe me, it's not national pride that I speak of. It's from a vision of the future. Or a remote memory of the past, when these people who are a lot smarter than us, or at least me, made this country. You know, so farms, gardens, these type of things, you know it, don't you? Green buildings, you're talking about houses, we're talking about wood. Well, what about clay and stone, things that don't go away? Simple things. Yeah, wood chip, things like that. Why? You know, heat savings, longevity. Maybe you actually do have a family unit and it means something to have your father's land once again. You know, this economy, it's really tough on water too. That's a big reason with houses and diet even. You know, that the average household spends about 40,000 gallons of water, fresh water, to run their house in a month. You don't make electricity from water. What are you talking about? Well, maybe you can with hydrogen, but that's not the point. You pollute water to make electricity right now. Again, to the science and the mind and everything. Okay. Another point, if you're a vegetarian, you can decrease your monthly water usage by about 8,000 gallons. Just another tidbit. You know, to me, the most radical thing and the most holy thing you can do is have a simple lifestyle. And that's what these people don't want you to have. You're not supposed to enjoy the dandelion tea. You're not supposed to feel happy about just going places or chilling with people. You need to go to fancy places and all this other stuff. And it's not such a bad thing, because there'll be a time, I think, like I said, where you can enjoy a little bit better of your quality of life. But there needs to be a base to it. I think anyone with sense can see that. And that's why, you know, any society that's really together will honor the peasant and the farmer. You know, and you can't have community without a home. And that's another big point too. Alright. Well, of course the home goes to the marriage, and we talked about that, but you know, I do think, besides it being a covenant to God, that it's also a very economical thing. And I don't necessarily think that they're mutually exclusive, to be a righteous man and to be an economically just man. In fact, look at the Bible and it's saying you must have equal weights and measures. Look at the Talmud and it says you must rip the other off because they don't matter, they're not God's people. So, you know, I do think stability comes with a certain backing with the Creator, a certain motivation in your heart, and very practical things like being able to find a home and having a job where you're not stressed out and fighting all everything because one person can't provide even if they really want to. In a lot of places that's how it is, you know. So there we have it. You know, we have our and another thing is, when all these things are happening, we're getting away the money to the banks that perhaps, you know, with housing markets and everything, that we could be using on our offspring and supplements and things like this, so that we have strong and mighty people who are worthy of a mighty place to live, a mighty kingdom. You know, so we're pretty much back in the degeneracy, and that's what you see. Maybe we had a boom with antibiotics and all this stuff in the 50s, but it's a downhill story from there. You know, I hate to admit it, but I've been graying since I'm 17. You know, I don't think it's anything on me so much, besides that I've had this plot in life, and that perhaps it'll show me a fine solution, and then if I get myself going, I can get other people going, right? So I don't look at it as bad. But it is what it is. And I'm not the only one that's breaking down a bit too soon. Alright. Comfort and convenience. And I'm not saying that's my own personal responsibility either. Or my own deeds or anything else. Because we all have our part. But sometimes we need to see, right? So comfort and convenience, that's another point. Because we think these houses are so comfortable and convenient, but the lifestyles thing. People with simple lifestyle tend to have more leisure time. Less gadgety things to break down, less headaches to have. Well, you could even say less batteries to buy. So we think convenience is one thing, but I don't think we realize that just being healthy and being alive is the most convenient thing. You fuel your own life energy, and then things become more simple. Your body is stronger, you're more comfortable wherever you are. But there are tough times, nonetheless. So you have gardens. Again, get back to gardens. I'm just going to keep on saying that because I think it's one of the most important things. Neighbor or town, you can expand, do these things. When we think about this extreme of convenience, I think about a place I call Hades, New York City. You can find anything, you can order anything, you can mostly find anything any time of the day, but if not, it'll be tomorrow, things stay open longer, all this stuff. But go spend some time in New York City and see how you feel about convenience after a while. It sucks the lifeblood out of you. You're denied responsibility and develop a heavy heart too. That's something I notice because I get joy out of taking care of business and things I feel like I should be doing instead of wasting resources so I can enjoy so-called leisure. But there's no leisure when your mind's all messed up and there's a bunch of noise and everything going on. I'm not a fan of cities. No offense to people who are in there, but I also think they're grave sites waiting to happen. So, I don't have an issue with cities. There's ways to do things. Europe provides a better example than the U.S. by far. Walking cities and all that. We need bike paths here. We need things like that. So it's not the city per se. But you can also look at the disease concentration in cities. Some diseases need certain population thresholds to even exist. And debauchery, oh my gosh. If you want to see the problems of the world, go spend a month or two in New York City, ride the subway trains, listen to the people, look at them. If you're sensitive, I bet you can just drive through the blindfold and you'll know it all. Okay. So the houses are shaped for consumerism, quite literally. Even the boxy shape, the way that the powers run, the type of power, all these things is not meant to be your home as much as it's meant to be a destination where you sleep and throw a bunch of junk in. Alright, so we're kind of forced and molded, and it's like a bird that's been replaced with a plastic box instead of a beautifully woven nest. That's how humans are right now. We're not connected to the earth, we're not connected to creation, we're not connected to God. So we have disposable lives, we could say. And we are disposable. We're at the bottom feeders. So we gotta up that up a little bit. I'm not saying be a guy who has nothing, quite the opposite. If you have a house that you don't have to have much bills for and maintenance and everything else, well, you could have a nice set of copper or silver plates or something. There are benefits to such. It's not like that. In my mind, you can have a clay floor and a nice dinner set, And who am I to say what you have anyway? But some people are like, you want to be the aesthetic? That's not what I'm saying. Alright, and then we have taxes, theft. I'm not saying anything new here, but there's a lot of details, and if you really look into it, you'll get pissed off in a more educated way. Road tax. It's when you buy the tires in the cars. It's covered. And that's how it should be. You use, you pay. I mean, if a car is how it should be, anyway. So, we gotta learn how to provide our own services. people like mechanical things. I kind of do. I really wouldn't mind having a nice little shop, and it wouldn't bug me one bit doing my friends' tires and stuff, you know. And in fact, I'm proud to say that I do what I can. I'm learning, and you know, I'm proud of my brother and things like that who help out other people who do that. So it's always good to know a little bit. I think anyone in the world can change your own brakes and oil. And I mean, even if you're 85 and don't know a damn thing about cars. Excuse my frankness. Retirement embezzlement, I already talked about all that, you know, pension fund hoax and everything. And I didn't really talk about it, I just mentioned it. I encourage you to go look at it, because that's just one way the world could be fixed pretty quick. Is if we don't let pensions be embezzled by investing them without the people's knowledge that they're supposed to be for, on pocketing profit. Alright? You know, so we're kind of out of it a little bit. We don't, you know, I guess there's a line between socialism and just providing and helping people get established. I'm not a fan of handouts. You know, it's the old proverb, teach a man how to fish, don't give him a sardine can, right? So that's about it on that, you know. And when I see these fundraisers about cancer and everything else, and saving all the hurricane dogs, you know, I bet there's a lot of labs that are liking all those influx of dogs right now, and you know, nothing really exists on a social platform unless somebody's getting a cut. And that's just my observation of how this world works when we're talking about services and things like that. It's usually not service. It's like, let me do this thing, and I probably won't do it that well, and I'm going to take most of the money, and who knows if the dogs are really going to be helped or not. You know. But hey, come drink a beer. We'll give some of it to a dog. You know, so you pull on the heartstrings. Same thing with taxes. Oh, I gotta help all these things keep going. It's my duty. Your duty. Well, you know, there's not a duty in life, right? You just live. Okay, 7, trade and business. Barter. You know, I respect Hitler's economics when he just cut out the middleman. We got goods, you got things. Let's switch it up. You know, can solve a whole lot of world of hurt. Of course, self-sufficiency is best, but there are cases really, particularly like an agricultural sector, growing rice. For some regions, are just, you know, God made this place to grow rice or something like that, and it just makes more sense to grow and export this and that, you know. So there are opportunities for trade. You know, certain spices don't grow in colder areas. You know, I personally have a fond love for cinnamon. You know, real ones, which is tough to get. You better watch your spices, folks. A lot of it's fake out there. And it comes into national security. If you're making money based off giving off all your resources and this and that, or jobs, you don't have security. Your nation becomes weak. It's you know, a lot of wars going on right now are just economic. There's a lot of good info out there if you're interested in that. Perhaps Google like Third World War has already begun in economic warfare. That'll give you a bunch of good information. Alright. Transport. We hit on that a little bit. It's on my mind, and I'm just a dude, and I'm really looking forward to, if I can't get myself a nice stick shift diesel, that would be awesome. It would last a good long time. I'm not going to go into diesel because there's things like magnetic rails and things. Hello, Japan. Hello, these big tunnels underneath the ground going from state to state to state, which they have patents for, and the big drills which glaze the rocks because they melt it so fast and hot. Man, I would do that. I know other people would too, and I bet it's happened. Why would you build a huge old drill if you're not going to use it anyway? Uranium drills, they're very neat. They heat up uranium so hot that it just turns the stone into glass. Well, imagine transport on that. You know, I'm thinking about running the truck right now because that's about the best way I can provide and eventually get self-sufficient if I just tuck my tail and pray for my conscience while I'm doing this. But hey, I would much rather see magnetic rails instead of trucks. Maybe trucks after a certain degree, from big stops to other ones, from hubs to locality. But see, I'm not all that informed about all this. I mean, I have really looked into it. However, I'm sure just anyone with a bit of a mind could come up with a great logistical scheme, or even using some type of really good computer to just figure out the logistics. And I think if the government should be doing something, well, that's one thing it should be doing. It shouldn't be doing a lot of other things, but if you could coordinate and solve and save people time, effort, and resources, that is a service. So we're coming to excuse me here. Oh, well, that does bring up another point with these drills. If they can do that, you better believe that they have all these crazy cities and stuff underground, and check that out. Just check it out. Underground bases. And there you don't know. And I have some personal history that it doesn't really matter. All I can say is there's a lot of weird stories out there. Some of them are true, but just because they're true doesn't mean they're godly. Man can do the false aliens. Man can probably make some human look really funky after a while. In fact, why don't you just go check out genetic engineering in China and see how you can order yourself a green glow-in-the-dark pig or a fuzzy alligator or something like that. Make up your mind. They'll send you the genetic code and you can reproduce it in your lab. Not science fiction. It's here. It's happening. And if it's happening in the public arena, I can imagine I have all types of demons and gremlins and all kinds of things going on. Not to mention the other ones that I think are more, we could say godly, not in the sense that they're right or just, but perhaps they are of an actual spiritual nature, besides the Frankenstein tinkering of man. And we're on the politics. There shouldn't be politics. Politics to me should be just dealing with people. You should investigate an issue if there's an issue and who it affects and ways to solve it, and you solve it. Simple things. Utopia, everyone says this stuff, but we have scientific natural methods for a reason. The same thing that led us to the globe lie and all this other stuff about the hollow hoax. Well, it applies to plumbing and water systems and the rest. Alright? Politics is just infighting. Our forefathers warned us in this country, of one party against the other and this and that, and it being a big shit show, flinging mud. So politics are important, but politics help people relate to people and their environment. Maybe that's not a textbook thing, but that's the working definition, eh? Yeah, so politics goes straight into corruption. It goes into food industry, which goes into horse science. Science becomes the representative of the highest bidder instead of a natural methodology at arriving at physical reality. So in the same way that Einstein and all this abstractness, sound effects, sorry, they get lost in their space and everything, like Tesla said, and it doesn't tie back to reality. Well, in politics, science of people, all these things that are going on, all these issues, they're not tying into reality either. They're abstract matters, and they're not, no one's really addressing things factually, straightforwardly. Because if you did that, all these issues that are on the table probably would have been solved. Maybe 200-300 years ago, I'm not joking. Usually you can solve solutions, and you solve problems pretty quick and come up with solutions. Just look at what people do when they allow the resources and have support. You can really do a lot to country in maybe 10-20 years. Of course, the bigger things are in the future, aren't they? But who knows the timing of this either. You can't rush the kingdom. So, I think we just gotta get things in our mind. We gotta get the picture going. And prepare and do what we can until everyone gets ahead of it here. If you think this horror science is just talk, I ask you to go talk to a research manager, maybe at like a cancer facility who does studies. I've done that, and what I've noticed is, as much as I drilled about this or that, it's pretty much all about who's getting the money, who's getting paid, so who's getting a cut of that money when the money's secured, are the results what the bidder wants, and does it match with the overall social political agenda? That's where we're at. Just for a little bit of factual point making, the person I was talking to also wasn't a fan of being in the sun and smoked cigarettes. I mean, I isolate one person, but go talk to some research scientists and see what you find. If you find an honest one. A lot of them don't think they're doing bad things and they're justified because they think they're so smart and they know all the numbers. Well, I don't think anyone's quite realized the human potential in the last few hundred years as far as health and longevity goes. Alright, so politics are skewed, as is religion. Now, I do think there's an intelligent creator. I do think he has a name. But there's no place for religion and dealing with people and structure in society. If a God made this place, then he has in him such knowledge, and this knowledge is in the world. And we can know that and figure out what to do by studying and examining his creation and our hearts and our greater intelligences. So I think enough said about that. Surveillance. Well, what happens with surveillance? You could also say data collection. Facebook, all these things. Zucker. He's a Jew. He's buddy with the big man over there in Israel, which was never a location, by the way, but a people. Same thing with these DNA tests. And I think it's pretty demonic and satanic, but even if it wasn't, what they're doing with these things and their incentive, it's just corrupt, and it's sort of like a sleight of hand. They'll take your DNA information, they'll sell it to other companies, maybe like these Chinese people. And I bet they're doing proper studies of things like that. From what I've looked into, they're pretty savvy about analyzing genetics and pushing that front of science. Same thing, and form goes with inform and practice. goes with the gathering of this ancestry DNA stuff, but also with Facebook to the advertising companies and everything else, again shaping our minds, shaping our subconscious. Genius neuroscientists get paid a lot for good reason, because they really work. Advertising affects how you view things that you don't even realize you're being influenced. How you think about the fall and the leaves and the seasons going by may be determined by the flavor of drink at McDonald's. And you're like, no, it's not, no, it's not. But go away from any of that for a year or two. Be off the grid and just live by yourself, and then go back to society. Alright? Sometimes it doesn't even take that long. A few months will do it. And just see how it affects you in your mind and what you think about when you're bombarded with all these signs. So advertising. Ooh, that's right, never surveillance. They want to make sure they know your mind very well. So I had no aliens is the next point, but I think that kind of goes with the whole flat earth thing. Maybe there's an alien, as in someone actually did come from this earth from a different realm. Or perhaps in a spiritual way you could be an alien if you have a divinity in you, right? Which isn't of this earth, but you still have an earth-like body. I feel like that's a trick that man comes into a lot. But as far as these green dudes and all this stuff, who knows? You know, I can't really say. I have dreams, but some dreams are true and some dreams aren't. You know, just like stories. But I'm just saying the flat earth thing has changed my whole idea of the alien. And I'm just gonna leave it as I don't know. But I really don't fear the alien invasion, all this other stuff. Especially because I think people want people to fear that. It seems to be popular since the 60s. I have gun permits. Right to bear arms, that's just constitutional law. That goes with, you know, the right to own property, the right to drive or transport yourself without tax, because that's just a little trick there. These cops are really just corporate security guards for the businesses and the municipalities, which are also just businesses. Your little cities and everything, the one I'm in, everyone. Mostly in the world. Well, I talked about psychology too. Seems like I'm hitting some more points. This might not be as long as the video as I thought. You know, how psychology is really not based on anything. It's a false premise. This brain effect, this actual physical thing in your brain affects your state of mind, and that's just not true. You can take a mouse's brain and mess it all the heck up. They'll still remember things. Water has a tremendous memory. I think that's part of the key. I think it's also just the certain frequency in the sounds just hold more information than we may be led to know. For example, there's cases of DNA being subjected to certain light and frequencies and then being removed from a box, but the sound remains. And it just makes you wonder, you know, there was the word, right? So, pharma, that's political corruption, that's killing people. We know about this. We also know a bit about the herbs. I'm not just saying every herbal thing is the thing to do, because you can do a lot of weird stuff out there, and it's all about the source, and be careful. Don't just get something because it's good and has a good name. Check out the sourcing, because there's a lot of heavy metals out there. Naturalnews.com. He's political, this and that, whatever. I'm not making a review of the person, but he has a lab and he checks out heavy metals. All right, I'm not just saying either way on him because I'm not here to influence your political idea that much, unless we're talking about politics in the sense before, where we're just talking about people being people and doing stuff and relating to each other and their environment, you know. So I hope you can find more health like that. A lot of the supplements out there are bull crap, I'll tell you that too. 90-95% of anything you buy on the shelf is just poor quality, it's too old, soil's not right, it's polluted, it's processed, things like that. So I think the alternatives get a huge PR in the negative, because it is a bunch of, you know, potions selling, snake venom, whatever. Alrighty. Another big thing is the command chain. Now this talks about how jobs are structured. Dick Feynman came and did a review of NASA, and I think it was the Explorer, and he found out what happened, and like anyone with a bit of smarts and ego, he had a bit of flair, so he went with his little rubber ring and he stuck it in ice, and it got rigged and contracted, and then he had like a seal and he showed it shrank. Simple as that, because that's what happened. I guess it was a bad seal and it was an oversight, and it, you know, the people down there tried to tell the people up there and everything else. Well, that's just how lies get going. If you're a part of anything and you don't know what the whole thing is, I would be watching yourself, because you may be doing wrong that you don't know. And as much as that's forgettable, I mean, I'm no judge. It's still damage. That's how I look at myself anyway. But that's anything. That's the pilot. That's not knowing about the flat earth and things. That's the idea that you're outsourcing your production of food or cooking to someone else. There's a big disconnect. It's having a boss who's a superior instead of a co-worker, instead of someone who's on the ground knowing things, and he's just maybe the boss and gets paid a bit more because he's good at it, really good, and can teach you, but also maybe he handles the other aspects and deserves more. Or maybe he just took initiative, you know. So there's that. But there's a huge divide in our society, and it's that form that I'm talking about, and I hope you see what I'm saying. There doesn't need to be a command chain anywhere, you know. At the same time, when there is full knowledge, and everyone does have full knowledge, just, I'm not saying that there can't be someone whose job it is to sort through things and this type of thing. Someone with administrative skills, but for the most part, you get what I'm saying. I'm not saying you shouldn't build a rocket in this example. I'm just saying that you needs to be everyone who's doing it, not a brand or a group of people, you know, up top, and everyone else just doing whatever. You know, because that's what it is right now. Because there's a bunch of smart people in our what do you call it, Populating class or whatever, you know. We have this idea like poor people, dumb people, but that's not my experience. You know, some of the really poor people know who grow their own food and stuff like that, you know, like I do sometimes. And I wish too, they're very smart, they're on the land, they have hands-on experience. You gotta listen to these folks, you know. And they've been talking for a long time, but at the time it doesn't matter, you know, because I think this command chain is a big part of it. So that also goes straight into lifestyle. I don't think there can be anything more holy and anything more radical than being self-sufficient and independent you know. And there's the whole thing, godliness, cleanliness. Well, I'm not saying you really should like shower 3 times a day or even once a day, because everyone's skin's their own. Sometimes it's okay to go longer, but there's clean diet, there's clean mind, there's clean relationships, right? And drugs. All right. Who got their greedy palms in the cookie jar about weed? And who might think it's legalizing weed is going to be like a way to get a monopoly on everything? Like, come on. You don't legalize something that's God made. It's in existence, it's a natural plant, and it's beneficial. So don't come to me or anyone with your terms saying what's going to be legal and what ain't. You don't define that, you know. No structure defines that. It's just a part of reality. Is this thing harmful or not? You know, that's what I mean by not debating all these crazy abstract things. It's a plant, okay? A plant. But that's good. I should also say it's alkaline. It doesn't have these starchy glues and everything. It's not toyed with. So, these things like ayahuasca, which are the same vein, but a different vine, you could say. And, but then there's the other side of drugs. Who's taking in all the crack and who's importing all this stuff in America anyway? It seems like it's the Mexican cartel up here in 1775. I'm about 20 miles away from the heroin intersection of the United States. And I'm in a state where a lot of people, the most people, die ODs. I think it's about 4,000 a year the last few years from heroin and other hard drugs. But I think heroin, actually. I was just looking at heroin, so it might be more. Point being, it's not the Mexicans. Check that out. Mexicans are being funded by who knows who. I do. So that's that, you know. You could also go into other types of food or whatever. New Age. Oh, the New Age. Let's break up some families, why don't you? Let's sit around and do nothing. I think that gets associated with drugs, and that's not my experience with people who use drugs anyway, like weed or occasionally other ceremonial drugs like the ayahuasca. It's not recreation, it's health, and a lot of the times it can make things sit in your mind a lot better. Sometimes you need to hit the research button and let God or divinity or some greater intelligence go through you and sort things out a bit. Alright? So, I don't know. I can't get on a tangent about New Age because it's just hokey pokey. There's a lot of truth behind it, like with the pineal gland and human brain anatomy and all these things. I'm not questioning that one bit. You read the Bible. Jacob goes, he lays on the rock in the Pell, and he has this dream where he's ascending the ladder, sacrum plexus, raising up your oils and your energy, right? He sees God face to face at pineal gland. Come on, people. The Bible's a lot of things, ain't it? Okay. And so there's that. That's just my experience, that a lot of New Age people, they're in weird relationships and whatever, but for some reason kids talk to me a lot, and I just see the pain, and I've heard it. And I also see the economic ramifications and the community ramifications. It's tough to have a community when maybe you're in a free love thing and everyone's worried to death about this or that or the other thing, or pretending like they're not to be, to act like there's some ego above that crap or something. But I don't know. I certainly have very sensitive emotional feelings on that level, and I don't think just because I may be able to say that as a man when most people, or a lot of people, can't, I still think both sexes feel that way by and large. And it's one thing to be different and have different customs. It's another thing to have different things thrown down your throat through media and everything else. you know. Water supply, we talked about it a little bit, but another thing is this economy right now runs on water, and this is something people don't talk about. Water is running out quite fast. You can't have industry, you can't have all these things with water. Again, Ohio's kind of a good example, evidently, because steel and everything, it's really polluted the water here. Ohio River is the most polluted water in the U.S., you know. So we gotta clean up the industry. I'm not saying making steel stuff is bad. I'm saying we gotta make things last a bit, and we gotta figure out how to not pollute so much, and then come up with a way to sustain a life. So self-sustaining doesn't have to be like a straw hat and twigs and like making little bridges out of ropes and stuff. You can have a great society that's self-sustaining, completely independent, and not killing nature. And you don't have to kill a bunch of other people to get there either. That's another thing. All right. Agenda 21 and whatnot. All right. Oil. Why do I have oil? Oil. I guess that does go in infrastructure and industry a lot. It's not organic. That's a bunch of hogwash. False scarcity. Can you talk about Rothschild saying, hey, you better figure out how to make this stuff look like it's like some weird dinosaur bone. We can kill two birds with one stone. Fool these people into thinking this is a huge commodity and it's a limited supply, which it may not be. And two, you know, evolution, all this stuff. Three, I guess global warming. I mean, these people are damn good at what they do. They're very smart, okay? And I'm not saying that necessarily we should be using the oil of the earth, you know, because maybe it does have like a function. I don't know how this world works, but it could honestly be like that oil needs to be like lubricating like the seat of the earth or the foundations down there or something. You know, maybe that's like how the dome turns or something. Like when time ends, maybe it's like, we're gonna run out, and it's like, I'm not promoting it as a theory. I'm just saying, like, I don't know. It's there for a reason, ain't it? When I make something, or when this car is being made or something, it don't have oil for no reason, you know. So there's that, but that's just anything. False scarcity.